Hey guys, what's going on? It's Brian coming to you from the TSTindustries garage, and today we have a customer's 2017 Kawasaki Ninja 650. He wanted us to remove his OEM fender, make this bike look a little bit better. I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you just pick this bike up or are planning on picking one up, you're gonna wanna do away with that OEM fender. It's one of the most common modifications to a street bike, and it is why we do focus on making solutions for that. So the first solution that we've gone ahead and made for this bike is right here, our standard Fender Eliminator. It's a very standard bracket, very cost effective. It's going to leave you guys with some open geometry once you do pull that OEM fender off. But if that's not something you're too concerned about, that is gonna be your best option. If you guys don't like that unfinished look of having some holes and some open geometry for water and dust to get into, we have gone ahead and engineered a closeout for you. It's gonna look a lot nicer when it's tucked up in there. It's gonna close out any of those open holes that allow any sort of water or dust or debris to get kicked up by your tire into your battery tray. Now, if you guys do just wanna run the closeout, that is an option. We have countersunk geometry here so that you can use all flush mounting screws. Goes up in there, very tidy, very neat. That's for you guys that might wanna run this bike on the track or something like that. For most of us, we're probably gonna wanna pair the closeout with the bracket for our Elite 1 system, or if you want our Elite 1 adjustable, which you may have seen if you followed any of our other videos, this bracket pairs up to that closeout, giving you guys a ton of adjustment. Now I do have on the table in front of me just a few accessories that we would suggest for this bike, being our BL6 pod signals, and a pod signal mounting kit would have to come with these. You can see they come in smoked and clear. I think the smoked personally look really stealthy, really nice. I think they're gonna accent all the black on this bike really, really well. Now, the reason I'm mentioning pod signals is because we do not have an integrated taillight for this bike yet. We're working on one, but in the interim, you guys are gonna want some sort of turn signal solution, so that is why I have mentioned the BL6 in the meantime. A very cost-effective means of having signals back there once you do ditch the OEM antenna signals. So without any further ado, guys, let's jump into the removal of the OEM fender and then jump straight from there into the installation of our standard Fender Eliminator bracket. You can find in another video, we were going to be installing the closeout with the bracket and the closeout with the adjustable Elite system. We'll probably at that point throw some signals on too, but check that out in another video. This one will just touch on the removal of the OEM and the installation of the standard. Let's go. All right, guys, first simple step besides grabbing your key, throwing it right there in your trunk compartment. Let's take this plate off because we're gonna wanna reuse that. I'm gonna set this guy and its hardware off to the side. Our next step is gonna go ahead and remove the passenger seat, and along with that, the main seat. Set those off to the side. All right, so our first step is going to be removing this fairing fastening screw. It's a black screw with a small nylon washer on it. Already actually gone ahead and taken the one out from the other side, but they are mirrored on both sides. Gonna wanna take those, keep them safe off to the side. Our next step is going to be grab an 8mm socket. We're gonna take out 1, 2, 3, 4. Start with this one up here. Keeping all of these fasteners off to the side and safe. We don't want to misplace any of them. And with that, our fairings should actually, with a little bit of jiggling, pop right off. There are some push fasteners that are going to slip in. If you just back and out, they will actually pop out. So, with those out, we're actually gonna go ahead and demount the taillight as well. Interestingly enough, that does end up getting in our way a little bit, so let's go ahead and do that right now. That will come with the washer. You're gonna wanna keep those. And our next step is going to be actually removing the 4 bolts that are holding the fender up. There is going to be one more hidden fastener, but you'll see why I took off the side panels and the taillight in a second, because that's how we have to access that. Going to want to support the tail a little bit once you're working on that very last screw, because it is going to want to fall out. As you can see, once I let it down, it does sag a little bit. All right, so with our fender and sub tray kind of hanging there, we are going to go ahead and now remove our turn signal wiring. Press down on these little tabs. It releases a little locking feature. Those slide right out. Our customer had actually gone ahead and had a different license plate wiring solution, so you will not get to see me actually removing the license plate light, but that is also very similar. A little small locking tab, you pop that right out. Now we're going to come under here on part of the sub tray. I want you guys to notice that your taillight is kind of just suspended on this little hanging hook. I like to leave it there because it keeps things clean, but there is a little wiring loom here. You're going to want to slip all your wires out of that. Just keep those off to the side for now. And now we're going to want to go ahead and grab a Phillips. Now, I've gone ahead and made myself a special little tool here with a small socket, but that's only because you have such limited room to work in here. Now, with that being said, I'm sure a lot of you guys don't have tools like this, so I did want to show you this is achievable. If you move the taillight off to the side, making sure that it's kind of in a nice place, it's not going to get scraped up. You can actually get in there with a longer Phillips head. You're just going to be kind of off center of the face of this screw. So you're going to want to make sure that it doesn't actually start to like skip out on you, as you can see it's doing for me. You want to have good pressure on that, not flexing the undertail too much. I'm going to go ahead and use my fancy tool. Now, as that starts to back out a little bit, you're going to want to grab your undertail, or your fender rather, because it is actually going to fall out once we have this screw totally removed. A little cumbersome to work in here, but with a little bit of patience, there we have it. Your fender will come off. Remove that screw. You won't need it later, not for our installation, so I just go ahead and throw that back into the OEM setup. Keep it for later. If you're ever restoring the bike to stock, you're going to want these sorts of parts. So we pull our wires out, our fender is off, we set it off to the side. All right guys, so with our OEM fender off, we can go ahead and start the reassembly portion of this install. So we're going to take those two longer bolts with the washers that came out of our taillight. We're going to bring our sub tray back up into its position, mount down through our taillight and into the accepting geometry. I hand thread everything to begin with, and then I switch to tools because I want to make sure I'm not cross-threading anything. It's very easy to cross-thread if you just start off with tools. We don't want to be doing that on fancy motorcycle parts. So with those partially threaded in, I'm going to take my 8mm socket again, bottom them out by hand, and then give them a quick turn with my ratchet. You don't want to over tighten these. They go through some rubber washers and into some plastic. So we don't have anything too strong to butt up against here. So you just want to make sure that they're tight, bottomed out, a little bit past that, and that's good enough. Our next step is going to be to go ahead and get our side panels again, get those installed. Actually, we're just going to do this left one for now because we do want to leave the option to plug in our signals a little bit later. We're going to throw on our bracket, throw the bike together, and get moving. So guys, in a similar fashion to the way that it came off, where we had to kind of slide it back just a tiny bit and jiggle it out, we're going to want to get our front fastener kind of lined up, our rear fasteners kind of where we think they should be, back a little bit. We're going to go ahead and make sure we're getting lined up. There's some locking tabs along the sub tray. Get those lined up. Get things down into position. Get those little locking tabs to click in. I don't know if you guys heard that, but you will get a little click once everything's in position. Then we're going to go ahead and take our M8 head bolts again, throw those back down through these fairings. Again, bottom out, maybe like a quarter of a turn. That's all those really require. We're gonna take that black fastener with that nylon washer again, go back into this side mounting position, through the fairing, and into the portion on the bike that accepts that geometry. All right, so our standard Fender Eliminator bracket comes with the bracket itself, and then some seems pretty random hardware. It is not. We're going to take our M6 fastener, throw the smaller washer into it. We're going to do that on both sides of this bracket. And then from there, we're going to take this, mount to our front or rear, totally dependent on you guys. I'm going to throw it on the rear section here. Throw those 2 bolts up through the mounting holes. We're going to take our larger diameter washer, throw that down in on top, and then our nylock nut, and throw that on top of that washer. I will need tools to tighten that. You can't get a nylock to bottom out by hand, so I'll have to go grab those in a second. But I can get things hand threaded on so that it stays in position. And I can let it hang like that. I'm gonna grab a 4 and a 10. 10mm socket, 4mm Allen. Start tightening down. We have provided you guys with nylock nuts, so you do not have to go crazy cranking these down. The nylock will not allow itself to back out. So just a little bit more than bottom out is really all you need. So once you feel it get tight, just give it another, maybe 1/8 of a turn even, that's all you need. And that bracket is on there pretty securely. Now, being that we are only going to be installing the bracket, I'm gonna go ahead at this point and throw on my other side panel. If I were choosing to do some pod signals, you'd wanna leave the side panel off, and you'd want to now at this point throw your pod signals on your license plate light, route those through the hole in the sub tray, around, plug them in, then throw that side panel on. We're not gonna do that today, so I'm gonna throw a license plate on, throw that side panel on, and call this installation complete. All right, so with our bracket on, or our license plate on our bracket, I've gone ahead and taken the other side panel. We're gonna go ahead and throw this on with our 3 remaining OEM fasteners. Very similar to the left side. We're gonna get it kind of in position. You're gonna wanna go a little bit further back than where your OEM fasteners are gonna drop straight through. Start to get stuff lined up where you'll see it will click in. And once we have everything kind of lined up, we're gonna drop it down. Ooh, see that? I missed the front. You wanna make sure that you have that in as well, underneath this front fairing that comes back from the tank. There we go. All fastener tabs in place. We could go ahead and take these M8 head bolts. Again, hand threading everything before we start with the tools. There we go. Switching back to our 8mm socket. Once again, bottom out, and just about 1/4 of a turn. That's all these really require. They're going through plastic and clamping down on it, so you don't need too much force. And then with this last fastener in, I could go ahead and grab my main seat from underneath. Slide that guy back down into position, making sure that little tab is in the right place. Grab my passenger seat, get that locked in, and there we have it, guys. That is your simple Fender Eliminator bracket for the Ninja 650. All right, guys, so with our bracket on, this installation is totally complete. This bike is, again, ready to hit the streets with a much better looking tail section. Now you will notice we don't have any signals on this. That is how the customer brought it to us. It's not how we're going to let him leave, but it's not something we're going to cover in this video. If you want to see us install signals on this bike, you can check out our other video. We're going to use our signals and our plug and play style connectors to get those on here. But again, that's going to be in a later video. If you guys do want to pick up this product specifically, or any of the other products that you see on here, maybe you caught that we have our spools on, our bar ends up there, our mirror block offs are actually on the front of the bike. If you want to pick up any of those products, visit our website at TSTindustries.com. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing to our channel so that you can see more installs like this and more cool content. We don't just do installs, we also race motorcycles and do a hell of a lot more with them, so check us out, guys. Catch you next time.